In many ways, our sympathies lay with the poor, abused Iraqi conscripts whose tragic fate lay in the hands of one unmentionable dictator. Most of us, I suspect, felt no particular desire to dance in the streets or to gloat unnecessarily over such a victory. I hope our nation will always be able to assist others in times of unexpected crisis. And I believe that as long as we value and cherish the unique qualities of our armed forces, they will always rise to the recurring challenge of defending the fragile principles of freedom against the ever-present darker forces in humanity.
My Lord Mayor, Your Royal Highness, Prime Minister, Your Excellencies, my Lords, Secretaries of State, Aldermen, Sheriffs, ladies and gentlemen, praise silence for His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales.
My Lord Mayor, Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, forgive me if I feel slightly embarrassed that all of you are standing for an occasion such as this, but it may be that there are problems with finding chairs in the Guildhall at this precise point in time. But my Lord Mayor, you and the Corporation of the City of London deserve our warmest gratitude for the initiative you have shown in arranging this important event. There are, of course, many precedents for such an occasion as this. The triumphal march through the City of London by Edward, Prince of Wales, the Black Prince, in May 1357 to mark the victory at Poitiers the year before. A similar triumphal march by King Henry V on the 23rd of November 1415 to celebrate his astonishing victory at Agincourt. The attendance of Queen Elizabeth I at a special service in St. Paul's Cathedral on the 24th of November 1588 to celebrate the victory over the Spanish Armada. Queen Victoria's review at Aldershot in July 1856 of the troops who had returned from the Crimea. Perhaps it is possible to understand how our lives, our hopes and fears can be put into their proper perspective when we read what Queen Victoria said on that occasion, over 130 years ago. Say to them that I have watched anxiously over the difficulties and hardships which they have so nobly borne, that I have mourned with deep sorrow for the brave men who have fallen for their country, and that I have felt proud of the valor which, with their gallant allies, they have displayed in every field. Do those words not sum up what each and every one of us felt when the American-led coalition brought the Gulf War to such a dramatic and decisive end? When, in Shakespeare's words, without stratagem, but in the plain shock and even play of battle, was ever known so great and little loss on one part and on the other. Like my great-great-great-grandmother, our hearts go out to the families and loved ones of those for whom fate decreed that they should pay the ultimate sacrifice. Most of us, I suspect, felt no particular desire to dance in the streets or to gloat unnecessarily over such a victory. In many ways, our sympathies lay with the poor, abused Iraqi conscripts whose tragic fate lay in the hands of one unmentionable dictator. that a single human being should unleash such havoc is hard to imagine. Yet, it has happened countless times in the past, and I suggest we should always be on our guard against it happening again. What, then, are we celebrating today? I will tell you what I think we are celebrating. Above all, we are giving thanks for the unbounded, selfless sense of duty displayed on all occasions by our armed forces. They did the job they were trained to do with consummate professionalism and without undue fuss. They did not revel in victory, nor did they wish to humiliate a beaten enemy. But at the same time, they were proud of the fact that despite training for decades to confront an entirely different threat in an entirely different climate and terrain, they were able to respond with speed and flexibility to the unexpected situation in the Gulf. Professionalism is the key to this ability, and it doesn't come cheap. The Royal Air Force showed of what metal its pilots are made, and God knows it's hazardous enough flying a fast jet without people spitting curtains of lead at you. Our army was as well trained as anybody else on the battlefield, and perhaps even better. This was exemplified by our ability to fight at night. The 1st Armored Division, for instance, fought through the first 2 nights of the land battle, and this must surely have been a major factor in being able to defeat the Iraqi army so quickly. The men of the Royal Navy sat for day after monotonous day, patrolling the waters of the Gulf, always at their posts, regardless of the conditions in which they were operating, always somehow retaining their irrepressible and self-deprecating sense of humor. I know because I spent a night at sea in one of Her Majesty's frigates in the Gulf just before Christmas. All the British personnel in the Gulf were acting as our ambassadors, and in this role they excelled. For me, one of the most notable features was the relaxed and friendly cooperation between the Allied forces and the unstinting support given by the Americans to many of the British units. Ladies and gentlemen, occasions such as this present us with an opportunity to say all the things which we may feel in our heart of hearts, but being British, we very rarely reveal. We can now say how intensely fortunate we are to have the kind of armed forces in which we can place our entire trust. In fact, I would go so far as to say that they represent so many of the best characteristics of the British nation. But it is well to remember that this state of affairs does not happen by magic. It is a result of maintaining the highest possible standards and traditions, whilst all around, in every other sphere, those standards have been crumbling under a relentless onslaught. Those standards and traditions have been maintained even under intense provocation in such areas as Northern Ireland. In the Gulf before Christmas, I witnessed the successful implementation of a logistical operation of immense complexity, made possible by teams of people working all the hours that God provides, while we all slept comfortably in our beds. Back home, I saw teams of people in tank factories and other industrial concerns giving up their days off and part of their Christmas holidays to ensure that the necessary equipment reached the men on the spot. Let us be in no doubt that none of this gigantic operation could have taken place without the highest quality of leadership and man management. The officers and non-commissioned officers have a crucial role to play, and none more so than the NCO. Their indefatigable encouragement, unstoppable humor, and energetic authority ensure that even the most seemingly impossible tasks are somehow carried out. Such qualities, I am sure, helped everyone overcome the harsh conditions they found themselves living in for week after week. And yet, I am certain the Gulf soldier would want me to make the point that his respect for those who had fought through the Second World War grew throughout the time he was in Saudi Arabia. For many, I suspect that everything was put into perspective when they considered what the Second World War veterans, and indeed their families, must have gone through, not just month after month, but year after year. All families who are left behind have to endure a peculiar kind of horror with which the rest of us can only sympathize. A constant barrage of news and speculation on the television cannot exactly have helped matters, but they kept up their courage, and in this they were helped by the tireless efforts of the family's officers, and in the regimental case, as often as not, by the devotion and inspiration provided by the commanding officers' wives. I hope, by the way, that we will never underestimate the intangible value of the regimental system. It is a uniquely British feature which takes account of that vital human factor which can so often make the difference between success and failure. It is worth remembering that the classic and exemplary role performed by our special forces throughout this campaign, whose valiant and heroic deeds in an extraordinarily harsh environment must remain largely unsung, was chiefly made possible by the very strong sense of regimental identity which has long been the hallmark of their astonishingly courageous exploits. Ladies and gentlemen, no doubt many of you here may be reflecting on some of the lessons to be learnt from our recent experiences in the Gulf. It seems to me that it is only sensible to learn from the lessons of the past, and at a time when our armed forces face the prospect of the most profound changes for some 40 years to their structure and role, their recent outstanding success and the way it was achieved is particularly relevant. I hope our nation will always be able to assist others in times of unexpected crisis. And I believe that as long as we value and cherish the unique qualities of our armed forces, they will always rise to the recurring challenge of defending the fragile principles of freedom against the ever-present darker forces in humanity. As Rudyard Kipling put it so succinctly in his poem, Verdicts, our children shall measure their worth. We are content to be blind, but we know that we walk on a newborn earth with the saviors of mankind.